Alright, welcome back to an episode of StatTAC. If you haven't seen these types of videos before, this is an AAR where I break down the good, the bad, the ugly of our last FTX that we went to. This one, my brother wasn't able to attend, so I went out there alone with some of the GSG guys where we conducted Operation Dual Key. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe button. Also check out our Telegram. We have a Telegram Premium, $6 a month, or you pay for the year if you want to support the channel. We also have a discount code StatTAC23 with CARCAJOU Tactical if you want some pretty nice kit. And also check out LAPA gear leaf hoods. They're a really cool piece of equipment. Definitely could give you the advantage on the battlefield. What was Operation Dual Key? Operation Dual Key was a last minute change of plans. Originally we had an FTX planned with River Valley Minutemen, and they canceled last minute. So everybody already took off. So GSG decided to continue on with the event, but with change of plans. So they created a scenario where we had two opposing teams with the guys that we were able to get. We had multiple objectives that we had to meet. Prior to this, we had pretty much no information or planning available to us prior to the mission. So once we got there, we were then able to essentially get briefed, try to do everything on the fly, and everybody was assigned roles. We had a squad leader, didn't really have any team leaders, but we had a compass man, a radio man, and like a demo guy or something, which really wasn't a thing. But yeah, so for the key roles in there was compassman and the radio operator, which had a big job because the radio guy had to communicate with command element, which was observing both Blue 4 and Op 4's movements and objectives. And these radio guys had a radio up there or our progress that we made during these operations to the command element that was overseeing the operation while we were competing with the Op 4 element. Blue 4 was M81 and then Op 4 was OCP, and there were evenly split teams down the middle. Woke up early in the morning. It was raining. It was on and off throughout the entire day. Temperature was like 40 degrees, so it was kind of cold. So like had to bring cold and wet weather gear depending on the weather and how it would change. We were also expecting flooded areas like the stream. If you ever watched our video from the May FTX that got flooded out, we were expecting the stream to be flooded. So we ended up having the game plan some ways to cross that without completely getting soaked. And if you've ever been in cold weather environments and getting soaked, it's not a good idea. So hypothermia would have been a greater risk. So we ended up coming up with a plan to develop a rope bridge I think it's like a ranger bridge or something. So a single static line, and we're gonna tie against two trees and shimmy across. Luckily, that was not the case that we had to do. And by the time we got there, the stream had drastically died down. And so we didn't really have a plan of where we were gonna start or where we were gonna go, like set up a PB or anything. We had to really kind of just operate off the fly. The morning of the FTX, Josh gave us a general brief for both sides. It was like your safety brief. Then they separated us from Op 4, Blue 4, where we were each given our mission, our AO. So in our AO, we had to find where we're going to place our PB, set down our rucks, and then we had to radio it up, notify command of where our PB was located and where we staged our vehicle for infilling and exfilling. From there, those 2 points would be our respawn area. Once we established those, we radioed those up to command, and then we had to wait for Op4 to set their PB up and their vehicle. Once both those sides got radioed up their locations, we were then able to get the go-ahead to continue on to our main objectives. The main objectives were we had to locate and find an IED placement and recover the IED. The second one, we had to recover an HVT, so a high value target that was role playing as kind of a lost partisan that was surviving out there for long periods of time. So he was kind of manic and not all there in the head. And there was like some sort of secret passphrase that we were given at the beginning, which I don't think anyone knew what it was. So once we would secure him, we had to zip cuff him or show him that we were friendlies, so then we could gain intel from him for the next mission. Some other points that we had to score were finding the enemy PB or their vehicle. So, and then we had to radio that up, confirm that with command, and destroy their PB, so destroy their respawn point. Right off the bat, we infilled, dropped the team off, tree line to start looking for a PB, so it was 2 guys, and then the rest of us circled back around till the Op4 team left, and then we entered in through our infill area. From there, we all dismounted. We split off into 2 more teams to look for a PB. We kept having comms issues throughout the entire time, and I know I got some new comms set up with like a Disco 32 push to talk through my Contact 5s or whatever, and I kept having issues where my mic wasn't transmitting my voice or whatever, but I could hear fine. And then I remember one of the first team we dropped off said that they found an area for a PB, which when they radio up the grid coordinates and I checked my map, I must have did something completely wrong, and I plotted it off the map or the AO that we're allowed to be in. I also plotted it on my GPS, I think, and which was also in the wrong spot, which I also saw that it was off the AO. So I ended up miscommunicating to our squad lead or our TL that it was in the wrong area, which was actually in the AO, because I checked it later on again when I got home or whatever. I was like reviewing footage, we-put the grid coordinates in, and I must have been typing something wrong into my GPS when I double checked it on there. So it wasn't the AO, and I remember telling my TL, I was like, hey, the thing's probably outside the AO, and I don't know how they ended up over there. But yeah, so we ended up just changing the position where we were. So we ended up walking around trying to find a spot, and then we thought we found some spot by the creek bed. And through this AO, there's like trails everywhere, so it's kind of hard. Put a PB in a spot where there's not a bunch of game trails or just trails going through the woods, especially in fall when all the vegetation is not there and it's just a bunch of dead vegetation. So we eventually find the PB, I remember telling some guys like, hey, stuff your rocks in some of this, like the vines and stuff, the thicker brush, help conceal it. From there, I remember I was like, hey, I'm gonna go put the drone up. Walked over to the back tree line, put the drone up, and I think it was up for maybe like a minute or 2 before I had issues with, I guess, debris in the motor. So my drone took a crash, which ended it for the rest of the duration of the FTX. From there, went back to the PB after recovering it, had to run through an open field. Do not recommend, but it's a training environment and everything's self-funded. So if you got a drone and it's, even though it's a couple $100 drone, wanted to recover that, I'm not going to leave it out there. Real life situation, I probably would just left it out in the field, because running out in an open field to recover, $300 worth of equipment, not really a good idea. Covered it, went back to the PB. I was like, hey, drone crashed, inoperable for the rest of the duration of the FTX. The squad lead also had a drone. His had thermal capabilities, and then me, him, and John went out on another drone reconnaissance mission. So we went out to the other side of the AO or our PB or patrol base or whatever. Set up over there. I stepped out of the tree line to launch the drone. And during that period, launched the drone, quickly got back into the tree line, and within a few minutes, or not even a few minutes, like a few seconds of having that thermal drone up, Willie, or squad lead, was able to pinpoint the enemy's location in the tree line across from us. Kind of just shows how powerful thermal drones are. And what was crazy about it, at least I suspected that the Op4 was more towards our mission area, and where they ended up actually being was parallel to where we were. So from being able to spot them with the thermal drone, I remember saying to my squad leader, I could probably look over at the other tree line and see if I can see them with my scope. This is where really having an SPR came into advantage. If you don't know, I run pretty much an SPR at all the events, and I think the more I use it, the more it's actually become very applicable to a lot of situations that I've been in. especially in the woods and between mountainous and flat regions. Anyway, we were able to pull their grid from the drone for their PB because we could see all their thermal signatures. They were all huddled around their PB. After I crawled to the edge of the tree line, I'm like looking through my scope and I see like a dude start peeking his head out, and then I saw like another dude behind him. And then next thing you know, they're all starting to cross the field, and I was like, hey, to my squad leader, I was like, hey, they're starting to cross. Do you want me to engage? He was like, wait till they're all in the open. So by then we had our other supporting element come up, and Willie is telling them to get online. And while they're getting online, I saw they're all in the middle of the field and they're starting to get farther, closer to our side. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna light them up because they're getting close and don't want to get guys on our side in the tree line that, aren't caught out in the open. We get all our guys online, and I open up to engage the main element, and they're like maybe 300 meters from us. So I was able to really see well with my 10x magnification on the individual guys. And when you're at these training events, even though we're using blanks and we don't have miles gear, I think it's good practice to at least put your crosshairs on guys, or your dot, or whatever, your sights on your enemy before firing, instead of just blatantly firing in their general direction, because there's really no way to tell if you hit them or not, and it's all off the honor system. But the way this event worked was whoever engaged whatever element first is the element that won. So if you engage the OP4 first, that means you win the engagement. So depending on how big your element is and all that other stuff, it's kind of like an honor system. It kind of gets a little wishy-washy later on how that goes, but yeah, we end up catching them all out in the open and lighting them up, and this kind of gave us a huge rush, like that we were able to wax their entire team within like the first 2 hours of the FTX. From there, we pack up, start heading to basically where we dropped our truck off at, consolidated there, and then we did an LDA crossing, crossed the main road, got over to the other side of the tree line, and started making our way to the first NIA, or POI, point of interest, for where the IED was located. We slowly made our way there. It was a lot of stops and navigational issues where we were trying to find the best route to the objective. From there, we took a lot of pauses and just navigational pauses, trying to figure out which direction we're going, because we had a compass man leading everything, and they were the only ones allowed to navigate, even though a lot of us had other navigational tools like GPSs, maps, and stuff like that, which assisted in, finding the best route. So from there, we kept going. We eventually get to the first point of interest. While our squad leader's figuring that out, he ends up sending a team of guys down there. We have to cross the water. They find the IED, bring it back, and we never opened it, but apparently it was loaded with it was like an ammo can, but it was like loaded with snacks. And we're just like, oh, we don't know what's in there. So drop that off, or pack that up, and we could use it for ambushes or whatnot. So pack that up and started making our way to the second NIA after confirming everything. But while we're sitting there trying to figure out which direction we're going to take to the next NIA, OP4 radios up that they found our PB and our truck, and they destroyed both of them. They were able to locate, from what we were told, after they recrossed the field after we left at AO, they sent a small team. It was like Tier 1B and Graves. They sent a small team across the field while they had another team going to look for the main mission, to look for our PB and our truck. And the reason they found our PB was because of an ACU ruck that was, I guess, left uncovered and kind of sticking out in the open. And I think it was the only ACU pack that anybody had. And they said it stuck out like a sore thumb in all the brush. So if you own an ACU ruck, or like one of those ACU Molly 2s, you probably should paint it or get a pack cover, especially if you're ever trying to plan on hiding it, because it stuck out like a sore thumb to them, and that's how they were able to locate our PB. They literally solely saw that ruck out of all of them there, and were able to destroy our PB. From there, they ended up just making their way down a trail or whatever and finding our truck and destroying that. So we lost both respawn points after we found our first point of interest. From there, we go to the second point of interest. This is where things really start to fall apart, and I think morale started to really take a dive. But we started making our way to the second NIA, where one of our point guys noticed that there's a team of dudes over by the trench line off to our left, and we're going to engage them. But I mean, I was sitting in the back, kind of in the rear, and I was kind of saying, or thinking, I don't know what's going on because they're all whispering. There's not a lot of comms going on. And we started moving up more. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're not going to engage these guys. And they ended up opening up on them. So we're already kind of in a file. So we're all online anyway. So just oriented. I just started dumping mags on that round. And then we started bounding up from the guys that set the main course of fire. So ran past those dudes. I set up later down the trail and I started spraying and the guys start running past me. So we're just setting up that base of fire, bounding upwards. And then from there, we only saw one team at that point, and we still don't know where the other team is other than they took out our PB. And like between these times that happened and whatnot, I think it was like a good hour. So it was like they could have been anywhere at that point. We started getting up to the trench, and I mean, like for me, it made a lot of sense if we just all got on a line and assaulted through, which I noticed a lot of guys were kind of like sticking to the trails and pushing down. It's the path of least resistance, and you're not walking through a lot of brush. Luckily, the enemy wasn't there after we eliminated them across the trench line or whatever during that second engagement, and that small team ended up having to go to their respawn point. Anyway, so yeah, we get in there, we start clearing the trench and stuff. There was no one in there. I remember using my white light to clear some of the areas just in case the partisan was hidden in some of the spots, because we did get intel during that engagement that he was really close to being found by the OP4, and we were just combing the area, and we weren't having much luck. So we ended up deciding to split up some teams. One team was going to go with Willie, the other team was going to go with our compass man, and we're going to go and check out the other trench line that's back there, and they're going to go check out some other area, I think like the west side or something of the POI 2 for the partisan. So we all split up. We get to the other trench line, clear that. Nothing there. Start making our way back to the main trench. See some movement in the brush to our left. Like we kind of get ready a little bit, and then I say my challenge passphrase. I end up saying both the challenge and the passphrase at once, and luckily I said it though still, and we were able to PID our guys before lighting up a friendly force, which the guys in M81, we also did tape, so we taped our arms. Even though it was like the blue tape or whatever, it didn't really stick out too much. We were really close to lighting up our own guys. We go back to the trench, and things kind of just like are falling apart, like security-wise, and guys are just kind of all staring around, looking at the compass guy and Willie, or squad leader, we're all trying to figure out what to do. They're just kind of all staring at them. So I'm like telling guys to get into their outward security positions, because we have now 2 elements. It's been a while and we haven't seen them for a bit, and they're probably making our way back to us. Decide to go down in front of the trench or whatever. We're starting to look around, trying to figure things out still. It's a lot of confusion and just like lost trying to find partisan. I find some footprints and some mud, and I'm like trying to figure out whose prints these are, and trying to remember what our partisan guy, Josh, was wearing prior to the event. I remember he wear jungle boots or whatever. So I was like, and I saw jungle boot tracks, but they're going like opposite of the direction of the POI. So I was kind of a little confused on that. So I didn't really, like I said, there's prints that are kind of fresh, but I was like, I mean, I'm not a tracker, so I don't really know much about tracking. So I was like, but these are kind of going in the opposite direction or whatever. So then we're like, we all huddle back up. We're like, all right, we're going to leave a team here and then send, another team of guys up and just recheck everything behind the trench and whatnot. And we left, I think it was like 3 of our less experienced guys for this, like, to watch this pathway thing where all these pathways kind of come together, and they were supposed to ambush anyone coming from that direction. And then I think it was like 4 of us for the second team. We started getting online, kind of like search and rescue style, to like clear out this backside of the trench. So we kind of like split off, got some spacing or whatever, and Willie and our navigation guy ended up getting in contact while I'm like kind of down by the creek, I guess, on the left. And then you got our other guy, he's kind of like far away from me, and my GoPro battery's dying. I'm trying to like change out the batteries while they're in contact or whatever. So that kind of like changed how I'm going to film going forward into farther FTXs and training events or whatnot. But because I was just burning through batteries, and it was really hard to constantly change batteries while trying to film everything. Anyway, yeah, so I'm like, I hear on the radio that they got engaged and there's a bunch of gunfire going off. And so I'm like, I start calling up like, oh, is Whiskey 1 alive, or I think Whiskey 2 or whatever. And they're like, and someone responded and said, Whiskey 2 is alive. And so I'm like, all right, I start running up there to relink with them. And I get up there, I don't even see Whiskey 2 or 1 or whatever, and it's just, I see like 3 dudes just like standing up on the trail, and I realized they were enemy like literally like split second too late because they engaged me first. So I hit the dirt, start spraying rounds in their direction, where they ended up maneuvering on me and flanking me. Reviewing the footage, when I dropped, I should have changed positions, like rolled out of the way of that. And I remember I did like a slow reload. Like I reloaded, I got my gun up, but like I was like trying to secure my fucking mag, and I was just taking forever. So by the time I got it secured, I had a guy coming around the corner and essentially safety kill me. I knew I was fucked at that point. I'm not gonna like sit there or be like, you didn't kill me or whatever. He got me on my pants down. So you know, from there, you know, start making my way back to a respawn point, which we didn't have one now. So we ended up getting from command to go to the venue, which OP4 was actually in there because they were using their truck as a respawn point, and they were utilizing that more than we did. So they put it at the venue, and they're already occupying that area. So we ended up walking in and respawning, getting killed, and then a bunch of confusion from there. We got told, okay, you can respawn there, and I ended up just going back out by myself because I think everybody else was like kind of like taking a break or whatever. So I ended up going back out. And I went up by myself and maybe thought fucking I could relink up with our security element of guys and then maybe try to find Partisan or something. While I'm making my way back to the AO, our security element, they started looking for Partisan, and then they got engaged and whacked. So those guys ended up getting lost trying to get back. So I was completely on my own out there, and I remember like I started hearing like people yelling, and I'm pretty sure this was a op4 on op4 thing, because they end up getting, everybody's dead out there, and I started hearing gunfire and shit, and they're like shooting at each other, because I later found out they did have a friendly fire incident, and yeah, they shot at each other, I guess killed each other. I don't know if they went to their respawn point or not, or how far away is from them at that time. I started getting up there, and I'm starting to hear voices and stuff, so I started slowing down, and I'm like, okay, they're close. So I'm like sneaking up on them. And I'm like, I get up over this creek, take a couple steps forward, and I'm like, I start seeing like, I see 3 dudes like directly in front of me, and they're like looking right at me. So I just hold my gun up, point it in their direction. I'm like, did they see me? So I'm like holding still for like, I don't know, it felt like forever. And then they start walking towards me because I realized they didn't see me. And once they kind of got like a little more in the clear and I could see them more, the 3 dudes, I engaged them. And then I don't know where everybody was in this element, because I didn't see it when I was there, but like reviewing my camera footage, I could see a guy flank me from the right. He's like, hey, like behind you, and he turns around. I turn around, I shoot at him, but he shot me first or whatever, so killed me. And then all their other dudes started popping up out of nowhere, and I'm like, holy shit, I was so fucked. And so like a personal or thing is like, you can't be a lone wolf and expect to win engagements or whatnot. You're just going to get outmaneuvered, and somebody's going to come up behind you and kill you or whatever. Even if you kill a few guys, you're just going to lose anyway, because you don't have anyone else to secure your other sectors. It's really hard to maintain security when you're by yourself and looking in all these other directions and trying to not miss something, you know? Yeah, that was basically the mission. We ended up just going from there after that last engagement. OP4 secured Partisan. We got intel that they were going to drop them off at this like site. So we go to the site, set up an ambush. We go to the site, set up an ambush, and we had this like U-shaped ambush, or V-shaped, or whatever you want to call it. And we're like waiting for them at this drop-off point. And it was like, we're there for like 2 hours and nothing's happening. So we're like, all right, don't know what's going on. And that's when the compass guy I was with was like, hey, there's a truck over in this field to our right. And I climbed over the bend, and I can see OP4 all chilling in the truck, where they had Partisan in there and stuff like that. So, and I'm like, I called it radio, like, should we engage or whatever? I can't remember if we got anything back. It was like I think it was like, it's probably not smart. So I just kind of held off, and I started seeing the truck move again. So I'm like, oh, they might actually like come over here to drop off Partisan. So like we see it make a left towards us. So we're like, all right, we'll just wait till they drop them off, and then we'll hit them. And they never came. So we were like, I was thinking back about it. And probably should just engage them all on the hill, because I could have just like see them through my scope. They're like all chilling, windows down in the truck and everything, fucking just bullshitting in the back of the truck. I guess during that time, Partisan tried to escape them or whatever, and they had to go recapture them or whatever. So from there, we had one last assault or defense thing. I guess Partisan gave them intel of a base we had. So we had to defend this cabin at night, and they had like 3 different teams. We saw them drive out in front of us or whatever once it got dark. And then they dropped the team off, I guess like kind of out to our side. And then another team, they had circle around kind of behind us, but we already had those sectors of security. And then they had it, once they initiated their assault, they drove a truck up right to the front and white lighted the thing, said blind or night vision. And then they had a guy with thermal, so they saw our outer security and they started engaging them, and they were telling us that they were just shooting at the muzzle flashes from the gunshots that were returning fire for the guys that have thermal or night vision. And then their other element that came up from our, I think it was like our left flank or whatever, like they just ran into another team. They didn't have night vision or anything. Or I think one guy had night vision, didn't really do much help for them, and then they got waxed. And then I remember I was like waiting for a booby trap to set it off in the tree line, which they never got to, so I didn't get to do it. But yeah, I just ended up engaging the truck, but that was the end of it. And then so now we're just gonna go over kind of like what went good and what went wrong. The good side of the mission was, I guess, the op tempo. We were able to keep up the op tempo for a majority of the mission and started knocking out objectives. It just really started to slow down. You see guys' morale kind of slowly drop, and confusion really started to set in once we couldn't find the second point of interest. The beginning, security was really good. The teamwork was really good, and just kind of going out throughout there. Utilization of our equipment was really good. Okay, so now we're going to talk more into like what kind of went wrong as we kind of like got farther into the event. A lot of guys really started to let their guard down and got very complacent. It was starting to get a little cold, and you were wet by the time it was towards the end. And so, you know, morale starts to drop, the security level starts to drop, and guys weren't really keeping up with their sectors of security. I remember, like I was saying earlier, you had to like direct people to go in a security position because they're just all standing around looking at the squad leader like, what are we, where are we going kind of thing. And it's just, you know, kind of a big gaggle fuck. Communication was pretty bad. There was people using other people's call signs. I think I had a mistake of doing that at some points, trying to correct it, and then be like, oh, never mind, whiskey 3 or whatever. There was people hot micing, or too many people had radios that were not important to the comms situations. I remember like while we're trying to get comms at the ambush area when we're waiting for partisan to show up, somebody's radio was just non-stop hot micing, and it was very disruptive, very annoying while you're trying to get comms with your command element. What's the status of this partisan for intel? That was really annoying. So only really designating key individuals for comms is good, or make sure everybody that does have a radio has, you know, an earpiece at least, and something, a boom mic or a hand mic that's in a position that's not going to cause interference with everybody else. We did take a lot of trails, so instead of getting off the trail and going through the brush, we ended up taking a lot of the least paths of resistance. And also while we're searching for partisan, we were sticking to like a lot of their like more clean areas and not really checking the shitty spots where people would probably hide because they're less likely to go to. He told us at the end he was hiding in like some beaver dam dugout thing, hole or whatever. So he was completely out of sight and down in the creek water or whatever. I know we didn't really do it, but Op 4 did it. Is walking in open fields. That was a bad call for whoever decided to do that on Op 4, where we were able to catch them. I'm surprised they didn't either set an outer security team on the tree line and then send guys to either bound through the open field or crawl to the other side till they're safe, and then setting another security team at the other end. Well, that security team crosses the ODA. Probably did something like that, but instead they all decided to all casually walk across this open field, and it didn't work out for them. What we learned from this, and if you're a rifleman or you don't have, you know, really too many jobs that you have, you're either carrying more shit or you're pulling security, right? And you shouldn't have to wait for your team leader to tell you where to pull security. You should just be able to look around and be like, nobody's pulling security. Like the guy in front of me or the guy beside me, you know, he's pulling this way, I'm gonna pull that way. You know, stop staring at your squad leader to, you know, tell you where you're gonna pull security. Maintaining that security, especially if you're in like a file, the guy's in front of you looking to the left, make sure you're pulling security right, you know, while you're patrolling, and just continuing on with that, make sure you're passing down hand signals. I think a lot of reasons we did get spotted towards the end was because we were also sticking in areas of or paths of least resistance. So we did get caught on trails towards the end where we started to get waxed. Yeah, just morale, trying to keep your morale up throughout the FTX or the event, even if it's sucking, you know, maintain that situational awareness and stuff like that. You got to force yourself to do it, even though it sucks. So continue to do that. Some things I like to practice, especially for like engagements, is for every engagement you do, you want to re-top off your mags. You know, it's not like a fucking video game where you lose any ammunition if you reload, or, you know, you can always re-index your mags. And I like to try to move my either spent mags or halfway spent mags to the outer parts and have my fully ones loaded, or at least like to top off my belt or speed mag that I run on my belt, so that way I have a quick access mag if I do have to do an emergency reload. But after engagements, I like to reload and make sure I have a topped off magazine for the next possible engagement. It doesn't matter how many rounds I fired in that engagement, I just like to top off. So if you ever see me like constantly reloading during engagements, it's kind of like, all right, I got the time now, reload when you want to, not when you have to, kind of thing. So just keeping your mags topped off. PCCs and PCIs, make sure you have important shit. No matter what, like your body size is, it's great to have a belt. You want to be able to keep your pants up. We had a guy not bring a belt, and his pants were falling down during a mission, and you know that slows everybody else down. So making sure you're squared away, making sure you have ammo, communicating with your squad leader TL about, you know, what you needs and like how much you have. So it keeps your squad leader informed about what you need, so we're not handicapped during a mission. And that's basically it for the Operation Dual Key. It was a great time meeting a lot of the new guys that came out. Yeah, if you guys liked the video, like, subscribe, check out our Telegram, and thanks for watching, guys.